Good evening and welcome to Let's Talk About. On Let's Talk About, we talk about all the things that pertain to our lives as Christians. And Let's Talk About is coming to you live from the studios here at Trinity United Church. And if you're watching us right now, you're either watching us on YouTube or on Facebook. And of course, it's on the account of Trinity United Church, Legon. And today, what are we talking about? A matter which tends not to be spoken about much in the church, even more so in public. The matter of sex. And a number of people have kept it in a certain form of secrecy. And so it's considered mysterious. And so today we are calling it the mystery of sex. And that's the conversation we are going to be having this evening. And I'm sure a number of you ahead of this conversation are very anticipating of what is going to be said, what is going to be asked, and what the responses are going to be. And so we are hoping that by God's grace, this conversation is going to be meeting your expectations, young and old alike. My name is Benjamin Ofeado, and I'm going to be your host this evening, and would want to hear from you as well. So would want you to send through your questions, your comments, your suggestions, your own experiences that you may want to share about this subject, which is an all-interesting one. And you can do so via our WhatsApp number 0501 579 996. The number again is 0501 579 996. Or you can drop a message on the YouTube or Facebook live stream from which you're watching. And I couldn't have had better persons to help us with this conversation. We have the father of the church, the minister in charge. He has counseled many couples. He himself, a married man of many years, very experienced. Before getting married, he was like myself, quite unexperienced, but here he is, having gone through the number of years of marriage. So he has a wealth of experience to share. And so we have our minister in charge, Reverend Dr. Martin Eduobing. Papa, Akwaba.
Yeah.
Also joining us this evening is a lady I have a lot of respect for. I consider her an elder sister, a very diligent human being in all her works, including her outlook especially. She's also the chairperson of the Wellness and Counseling Committee of the Trinity United Church Legon, and she's in the person of Mrs. Joyce Chumesi Edu. You're welcome to Let's Talk About. So, as you can tell, we are all poised for this conversation. So, if you're ready, we are, and we'll go straight into the conversation. So, let me start with you, Papa. The mystery of sex. Why is sex even considered a mysterious subject?
Thank you very much. We normally talk about sex because the organs that are involved are shrouded in some cloth. They have been kept away from people. You find that when a child is growing, take maybe a 6-month-old baby, it can be naked. 1 year naked. But by the time it gets to 2 years, when you try to expose his or her nakedness in public, they will normally run and go and hide. Because somehow it's been built into us that this is a place that must be kept protected. And to a large extent, it even influences the kind of names that are given to the sexual organs. So you find that right from our growing period, we are more or less ushered into a mystery. So that at the right time, we can unfold that mystery through practice. Names like akatesia, wakatani huesie. So they are all indicative of the fact that when you talk about sex, it's something which we don't have to treat like any other thing. And sometimes I think that the other component is the consequence of its practice.
Okay. The details of which we'll be getting into.
Yes.
So what I'm hearing you say is the mystery of sex is really a function of socialization and not necessarily that of nature.
Yes.
So it's what society has trained us to believe about it. That is what makes it mysterious.
Yeah, because its practice cannot be done under the cloth. It has to be practiced naked.
Without clothes.
Without clothing. But it is when the act of practice is being done.
Yeah.
Then we go under the mystery.
Yes.
And then we unearth what is in that mystery.
And maybe just to take us back to the beginning of time, you know, when Adam and Eve, when Eve ate the apple, having given some subsequently to her husband Adam to eat, and their eyes were opened, they found themselves naked and they hid. Does this mystery of sex also have any spiritual underpinnings?
Well, if we look at it from the context of when the woman was brought to Adam, that was a naked woman being admired by a naked man. We need to get that very clearly.
Okay.
Because Eve was not brought to Adam clothed. She was naked. And Adam saw everything that she brought with her. And therefore, he appreciated everything that he had. That's why you realize the statement is put in a poetical form.
Yeah.
The bone of my bones and the flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman. So he was so excited about it.
Yeah.
You know, but the point where they become, in a way, afraid or they went to hide was not primarily because they were naked per se. But that which they had done had caused some feeling of guilt.
Okay.
And let me be quick to say that it was not, the fruit was not sex.
Okay.
Because I've said what they did. Otherwise, somebody might say...
The forbidden fruit, as people refer to it as.
So it was not that. Otherwise, they would not have continued eating it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So now that we have unearthed what causes it to be mysterious, let's get to understand why sex was created. So let me come to you, Auntie Joyce. And sex, who created it, and for what was it created?
Okay, thank you. So I would want us to establish the fact that sex was God's idea. Okay. And the Bible says that for this reason, a man would leave his father and mother and cleave to his wife, and they would become one flesh. So sex was God's idea. And he said, he charged man to be fruitful and multiply.
Yeah.
You'd also see in the Bible that the Bible would normally say, and Adam knew his wife, and she became pregnant.
And Abraham knew his wife Sarah.
Yes. Yes. Okay. So sex was God's idea, and He created it for procreation.
Yeah.
He created it for pleasure. He created it to bind husband and wife. So God's idea about sex was only in the context of marriage.
Okay.
Okay, so God created sex. It was His idea, and He created it in the context of marriage for procreation, for pleasure, to bind husband and wife. So if the Bible says that, and they became one flesh, it means that you are husband and wife, you have sex, and you become one flesh. It is the only thing that can bind you to become one flesh. So sex was created by God, and it was His idea, not man's idea.
It's interesting. So I hear you talk about the procreation essence of sex, which is very much physiological. Then you talk about the pleasure part of it, which is social. And then you talk about binding them together, which is spiritual.
Yeah.
So, Papa, does that mean that those who have sex not with their partners, and I'm talking about wives or husbands, are getting bound spiritually to those people with whom they are having sex?
Right, thank you. When Paul gave an exhortation, I think it's in Corinthians, of the need for the Christian not to be intimate with a prostitute. Because the idea he says is that by that there is some sort of contact.
Yeah.
And if you really look at the details of sex, there's a transmission of fluid.
That's correct.
From both sides. And through that transmission, there is a contact that is established also physically and also to bring an end product, which we normally know sometimes results in pregnancy.
Okay.
And very often in counseling, you realize that people who before marriage got themselves so much involved in sex. As Opanyo Kwajochira would say, you've seen Omahene, you've seen the linguists. So when your husband comes and he's a linguist, you've already seen an Omahene before.
So there's disappointment.
You see, so because of that intimacy, and very often also, I've realized that people, especially women, they can recount those that they first had a relationship with. And if the grace of God does not come in the marriage, they might be in the marriage, but still have some good memories of that first encounter because there has been a level of bonding in that relationship. So surely there is something spiritual about it.
So looking at the context within which it was created, sex, and I'm coming to it again, Mr. Joyce, in terms of benefits, beyond what the purpose is, how does sex help a couple?
Sex is truly beneficial, okay, because it makes you become one flesh. It binds you together. And so for a couple who have a good sexual relation, they are a lot of times a together couple.
Okay.
It brings you together. There are some situations where you'd find that there are couples who actually use sex as an argument settler.
A conflict resolution mechanism.
Conflict resolution mechanism, exactly. Okay, so they become even more together when they have had a conflict and they have had sex afterwards and they have been able to resolve the conflict. By morning, you'd realize that, so if you're a third person watching them, you'll be wondering, when these people there, when these people there fighting couple last night, what happened? There's every chance that they may have had sex and it had sort of leveled the conflict zone. So, and that is what God used in his wisdom as God to be something that is unique to couples, okay, a husband and wife. And so it is one thing that no matter how we go up and down, front and back, it binds us together. Yes. So the major, apart from procreation, the major benefit of sex is the togetherness that it brings. And if you are a couple, you truly need to be together, even to progress, because it's a journey you are on. And so you need to have one mind, to be like-minded, to be able to travel the journey.
Papa, would you want to chime in on this?
Yes, I wanted to add that for two people to be at a place and for one to open up access to her private parts, and for the man also to bring out what he also has. It shows a level of confidence and assurance. One, that the person is not coming to kill me. And that alone begins to bring things down.
So there's a place of safety.
Exactly. You know,
Trust.
when I talk with people who get married, well, before they go, normally we talk about some of these things. When they go in after their first and so experiences, you realize that what they thought, they realize that, oh, when I was growing up, as part of this mystery, I was told that the man's organ is called Dua or Titi.
Titi.
Yes.
I've not heard that one
okay.
before. Okay.
So there is that fear that, hey, if Titi is coming or the steak is coming, there's trouble.
That's right.
Only to find after that encounter that, oh, it was flesh to flesh. It begins to take away some of the fears. And that's where, like our sister said, people can sometimes take that as a way of strengthening their bonding. Because through that, there is a deep contact.
Yeah.
And it strengthens the relationship.
You've been counseling a lot. Has it been the case at any point that sex has become a reason, especially for post-marital counseling, where sex has been a reason, whether the excess of it or the inadequacy of it has been a reason why a couple have even contemplated separation or even divorce?
Yes. A lot of times. The excesses of it. So the man wants it every day or 3 times a day or
3 times a day?
oh yeah,
Breakfast, lunch, supper.
breakfast, lunch, supper.
A painkiller.
Or you take it like a painkiller. Yes. And then so the woman gets tired, gets bruised, gets she thinks that she's being abused.
Oh.
Okay, she's being used, she's being expected to be a machine. She's being abused, she's being seen as a property. Because you'd have some men say, okay, so I spent my money to marry you. You are part of my possessions. Mabeto.
That's right.
Matu sikaye ohwade.
Yeah.
Inti esese meto meka.
I see.
Okay, so
We are settling scores.
yes, we are settling scores. He feels entitled. He feels that now you are part of my possession. You are part of my table, my chair. When I'm to list my possessions, you
A part of
probably,
the
because you
furniture.
are human being, you be the first.
I
But
see.
you are part of my property.
I see.
And so I need to let you feel that what I felt when I spent the money on you. Yes. So for some men, it's actually it borders on vindictiveness. Okay, especially if during the marriage preparation, the lady was very demanding. So I want a wedding as big as this. I want several bridesmaids.
I see.
I want us to have the wedding at this posh hotel. Okay, so the man, because he wants you, would probably, after several arguments, would probably yield. But at the back of his mind, Obeto Oneka.
I see.
Okay, so you'd have those instances. Then you'd also have the instances where the lady is not fulfilled. Okay, sex comes in very sparingly. Some women actually have to cry and beg their husbands before she can have it. And she's wondering then, what was the point of marriage? If she was a Christian lady, she probably had kept herself, okay? With all the temptation around, she had decided that, look, the Bible is against fornication. The Bible is against premarital sex. So I'm keeping myself for my husband. And then she keeps herself for her husband. And then 2 weeks, 1 month, she needs to beg before she can have sex. And she becomes very disoriented. Then what was the point of this marriage? If I had known, I'll just have stayed as a single. Then I know that, well, I'm a single lady. I am not entitled to sex, and so I shouldn't expect it. But if I'm a married woman, then I should expect it. And I don't have to beg for it. It should come naturally.
Yeah.
If there's that chemistry between us, we are husband and wife, you have an obligation towards me, I have an obligation towards you. And it's a good thing between husband and wife because it's supposed to bind us even together. But if I have to cry and beg for it, then what's the point? I might as well opt out. Yeah, so the excesses is a problem.
The
inadequacy is also a problem.
Indeed. And Papa, and you see, she cites an example of a woman say, after all of this waiting, I mean, after all the TTs in view that she had to manage to, you know, stay away from. But the story sounds a bit skewed towards the woman. It being excessive from the man or it being insufficient, you know. But from the man's perspective, on the issue of insufficiency, and you hear right now there are a lot of advertisements about medications and herbal medicines that one can take to last longer in bed and all of that. The issue of brevity of time when it comes to sex, and especially it is a matter with men.
Yes.
Have you had to deal with situations like that, and how did you go about it? What kind of advice did you provide?
Thank you. I'm glad you mentioned the issue of advertisement. Because sometimes the picture that is presented, even by the advertisers themselves, is not what they are practicing. So this medication will enable you to go 3 rounds, 4 rounds. But, you know...
But Papa, just for the benefit of the young ones listening who don't know what the rounds are.
Okay.
I mean, what
one round will be where there is penetration, satisfaction, and then the man's male organ begins to cool, to soften.
Okay, so it becomes flaccid.
Exactly. That will be taken as maybe 1 round.
Okay.
You know.
So a cycle of satisfaction.
Exactly.
Okay.
I once heard somebody say, and I took it very serious, because he said that for a man to be able to bring out a teaspoonful of sperm, it's like running about 5 kilometers.
It's like a marathon.
It is.
So it's a lot of energy, you know. So most times when people talk about 2 rounds, 3 rounds and others, either maybe in their first encounter, they are able to bring out the sperms. In their second encounter, they might have taken some other medication that keeps the male organ erect.
Okay.
And so they might go and penetrate. But in actual sense,
there isn't much.
There is not much that they are really satisfaction. They are just trying to prove a point.
Okay.
It is more of trying to prove a point. And most times, from my own experience and what others have shared, the point is that after you have finished, there is exhaustion. And that's why sometimes we have heard of elderly men who have been stretched by young ladies to the point of death.
Yes.
Heart attack.
Yes. Heart attack.
Yes.
That's correct.
You know, so some of these things that are put out there, sometimes people go into the marriage with that mindset. So a young man who hasn't had sex before has been told that you can have 3 rounds. And then he goes into the marriage. And then after 1 round, he does all he can to be able to get erection and go for 2nd round. And it's not happening. And then he feels that he's been defeated. And the lady also might have known that, after this round, there'll be another one. So possibly in the first round, there's a lot of carousing. Emotional contact is very important. People have to be prepared in their senses, through their senses. Women normally get involved in sex through the mind.
Okay.
The men, as for men, when we see, whatever we see, we are ready.
I see.
Women will not go in for that. They really want to be psyched up and be able to get actively involved. Okay. So there are times you hear people even say that, we had sex, but I didn't enjoy it. Because the man was, let me say, selfish. He only thought about penetration, depositing, and then he relaxes
and
departing. While the lady is now rather ascending. He has finished his part.
So she's now building a Christian.
Exactly. And you leave her midway. And you think that you finish your part.
And Papa, let me stop you right there and bring it to you. So from a woman's perspective, what do you think is supposed to be the approach of a man going into a sexual encounter with his wife? How should he approach it to ensure that there's mutual satisfaction and all the intentions for which God created it is attained?
So let me say that for women, sex is not a one-time, sudden event. It is not a boom, something.
It's not an activity.
It is not.
It's a process.
It is a process. So you need to work on my mind. So you, the husband, you have the intention to have a match in the evening. During the day, send me text messages. Check up on me. Are you okay? Work going on? Lunchtime, call. Oh, have you eaten? I'm eating. Have you eaten? I mean, show me love. A woman is able to fully open up and enjoy sex when she feels loved.
Okay.
Unless, of course, she's using it as it's an occupation. Okay, so then it's mechanical. But if it's truly sex as God intended it to be, for pleasure, for procreation, you need to get me psyched up. You need to get me worked up. You need to excite me. You need to let me feel your love. And it flows naturally. You won't even have to ask for it. I know that I have to give it and take it. It's not like giving it because it belongs to the man.
It's an obligation to be
Or it's an
granted,
obligation, or just to make your husband happy. It also makes me happy. And if I feel loved, I appreciate you by opening up to you.
Yeah.
But if I don't feel, if in the morning when we're leaving for work, you spoke harshly with me, okay, the whole day, I texted you to ask how you are, even ignored my text. I called you. You returned the call 2 hours later.
He may be busy.
Well, he may be busy, but just a simple text message.
Yeah.
I'm busy.
Yeah.
I hope you are okay. Just checking.
Yeah.
I know you are busy. The tone of the text tells me you are busy, but even in your busy situation, I'm still priority.
Yeah.
It makes me feel loved and appreciated, and it makes me willing to have sex with you.
Yeah.
It makes me want to bond with you.
Yeah.
But if I feel abused, if I feel you don't care, if I feel unappreciated,
Neglected.
I'll do it neglected. I'll do it as a matter of obligation, because Osofo will tell me that I am, it is part of my conjugal rights and responsibilities.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll do it because I am a wife. But as to whether, and you see, if I do it because I have to do it as a wife, if my mind is not prepared for it, my body would also not be prepared for it.
So, I mean, listening to you, what I'm hearing you say is, a man will typically give sex to show love, but a woman would give sex when she has been shown love.
Yes, so yes and no.
Okay.
Or that not in totality.
Okay.
So I would give sex because I feel loved and I love you in return. Okay. But I would give love hesitantly if I am doing it as by way of obligation.
Okay.
Because I am a wife.
Yeah.
But not because I feel loved, not because I feel appreciated, not because I feel that I matter to you.
Yeah.
If a woman feels that she matters to her husband, it comes naturally.
Okay.
Her body is totally prepared for it anytime.
Yeah.
And it does not become a chore.
Yeah.
It becomes a pleasurable thing. It
Yeah.
becomes an act that I would engage it because I love you.
Okay.
An act that I would engage it because I appreciate that you appreciate me. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's a cycle of appreciate me, let me appreciate you, let's appreciate ourselves.
Each other, yeah.
Yeah.
And you're still watching Let's Talk About. And today we're talking about the mystery of sex. And I've been in this studio a number of times. I've not seen my crew this active and excited about a conversation before, like it is the case today. And I believe you, the viewers too, you are that interested and excited about the conversation we're having. So we'd want to hear from you. So send us a WhatsApp message on 0501 579 996 or drop a message on the Facebook or YouTube stream from which you're watching. Yes, it's Trinity United Church, Legon. We've been talking so much. We tried to explore sex, where it's coming from, why it was mysterious, the purpose for which it was intended, what the benefits thereof are, and the context within which it's supposed to be practiced, how it's supposed to be practiced, and all of that. We'll go for a quick break. When we're back, we'll be looking at, and we'll be coming back to, they're not married yet, and those who are engaging in it, the impact it has on them, if there's supposed to be restoration, what they can do about it, and the various other forms of perversion when it comes to sex. This is Let's Talk About, and we're talking about the mystery of sex. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
With the growing challenges of life in light of both global and domestic development, the Christian is faced with the difficult task of balancing survival within a secular system and at the same time living a Christian life that pleases their Maker. It is for this reason that we need to have frank conversations on the many issues of life through the Christian lens. So, we bring to you Let's Talk About. On Let's Talk About, we talk about health, career, dating, marriage, family, divorce, politics, finance, and all the issues of life that the Christian is confronted with on a daily basis. Join us this and every Wednesday on the YouTube and Facebook pages of Trinity United Church Legon, and let's talk about life as Christians. With the growing challenges of life in light of both global and domestic development, the Christian is faced with the difficult task of balancing survival within a secular system and at the same time living a Christian life that pleases their Maker. It is for this reason that we need to have frank conversations on the many issues of life through the Christian lens. So, we bring to you Let's Talk About. On Let's Talk About, we talk about health, career, dating, marriage, family, divorce, politics, finance, and all the issues of life that the Christian is confronted with on a daily basis. Join us this and every Wednesday on the YouTube and Facebook pages of Trinity United Church Legon, and let's talk about life as Christians. With the growing challenges of life in light of both global and domestic development, the Christian is faced with the difficult task of balancing survival within a secular system and at the same time living a Christian life that pleases their Maker. It is for this reason that we need to have frank conversations on the many issues of life through the Christian lens. So, we bring to you Let's Talk About. On Let's Talk About, we talk about health, career, dating, marriage, family, divorce, politics, finance, and all the issues of life that the Christian is confronted with on a daily basis. Join us this and every Wednesday on the YouTube and Facebook pages of Trinity United Church Legon, and let's talk about life as Christians.
You're welcome back. This is still Let's Talk About, and today we are talking about the mystery of sex, and this is coming to you from the Trinity United Church Legon here on the premises of the Trinity Theological Seminary in East Legon. And before we went for the break, we were talking about trying to explore what sex is, what the purpose of it was from the creator of it, the context within which it was to be practiced, and the various elements around it, trying to demystify the supposed mystery around sex. And helping me with this conversation is our minister in charge, Reverend Dr. Martin Eduobing, and the chairperson of our Wellness and Counseling Committee, Mrs. Joyce Chumesiedu. And let's come back to those who are yet to get married, who may find themselves indulging in sex, which from what we are learning today is not within their remit. For such a person who, I mean, certain people may have kept to themselves for a very long time and eventually giving into sex, and once they have gone into sex, I mean, it becomes a bit more repetitive. For such a person, because they are thinking, what is there to be lost again? That virginity is gone, so really, what is there else to be lost? For such a person, is restoration a thing which is necessary? And if it is, what should they do?
Right. Let me just bring in this. When you look at the story of Adam and Eve, that first, let's call it first sexual intercourse, the word used, which is translated, is knew. Adam knew his wife.
To know her.
Right. The tree says, Adam hu neyere. If I say I know you, it means that there is a certain bonding. We have interacted.
Yes.
We've gone to that point where I'm willing to share everything with you. And so that is where this whole idea of intimacy comes in.
Okay.
So if you're not married, and then you go in with somebody who might not become your husband or your wife, you're going to build a bond, a level of intimacy. Sometimes I realize that people do it because there is, especially the young ones, somebody says, if you really love me, then prove it.
Show work.
And the way to prove it is to show work. It's for us to have sex.
Okay.
So you get in there, you have sex, and then possibly at the end of the day, the relationship does not work. There is going to be a deep feeling of bitterness, of guilt, and hatred. There is a story in the Bible, well, because I'm a pastor, let me bring in, there's a story of Amnon and Tamar, which I like so much, because you realize that Amnon was really excited about Tamar. So much that when he received advice from his cousin, Jonadab, to say he's ill, actually, in a way, he fell into love and became ill.
And Tamar's relationship with Amnon was that of what?
It began with love. But in the end, when he had that intimacy, the Bible says that it turned to hatred. And he walked her out of his house. So sex really can be very bonding. And you can see in that story that Tamar did not want to go. Because she knew she had bonded with Amnon. He had even told Amnon to wait and tell the father so that she'll be given to him and then they can bond. But he ran ahead and did it. And the consequences we know. It ended with his death. So for those who are out there, I want to say that immediately you enter it, because it's a mystery. When you enter and you find out, there are two options which sometimes happen. One is for people to withdraw and decide they will not go in again. It's for others also to want to find various styles and approaches. They want to delve deeper. And by the time they claim they are experienced, they might have been at the doorstep of marriage. Only to go and meet a novice. And they are more experienced than this novice. And this novice cannot even find a door. Then the tension begins right in the honeymoon. So my advice is that there's a lot of experience that we gain when we are in marriage. Because sometimes you will mess up. The two of you will laugh over it. And next time you learn and you keep going. But if you want to gain the experience before you enter, by the time you come in, you might, unless maybe the person you were doing all these things with becomes your husband. But even there, sometimes it gives room for suspicion. Because the feeling is that when we're not married, we were doing it. So now that we are married, if I travel and your appetite comes and I'm not around, the possibility, and especially if the lady is very, very fair, beautiful. There are some men who feel threatened because they see that their ladies are potentials. Even though they are married, they know that some men will want to advance. And that becomes a threat.
In fact, there are some men who say that if you are my woman and other men don't want you, then there may be a problem with me. And so they will deliberately go for someone that they know that, other men would actually want. So at any point in time, they know that potentially other men may be making incursions.
Right. So if you you initiate her before the marriage, and you continue in that direction, possibly, if the lady gets to a point where she also wants to try and she doesn't have good morals, she might break bounds.
That's interesting. The angle that you... So, indeed, seeking experience before you get married in itself could create a situation of mistrust between the two of you, even if you go ahead to get married. So let's flip it and let me bring it to you, Auntie Joyce. How about those who say that on the issue of compatibility, it's a very big deal. Compatibility spiritually, compatibility when it comes to your interest and all of that. And they talk about sexual compatibility, where if there isn't clarity on how compatible we are when it comes to our sexual appetite, that is going in blind. And potentially some of these examples you cite where certain people feel they are not getting enough, others feel they are being abused and all of that. To avoid that, let's test it. And they talk about you don't buy a car until you've test driven it, that kind of thing. What would you say to such persons?
You see, there's a lot of... One of the topics we treat in premarital counseling is communication. There's a lot of communication when it comes to sex. What is compatibility? If you say you are compatible to somebody in terms of sex, what is it? Is it that you'd want it, you have a higher frequency and she has a lower frequency? Or the kind of styles you'd want, she wouldn't want it? It's all about communication. If I want to satisfy you, I feel appreciated, I feel loved, I would want to satisfy you, so at least I would want to try. Okay. If we both don't have experience and we are coming in, two blind people, it's even wonderful because
you explore together.
We don't have any basis for comparison. And so we are coming as two new people to the game. So we are going to find our own rhythm. We are going to find our own pattern. Perhaps conversations that we have had before marriage. Or some movies we may have watched. Or some books we may have read would pre-inform us. Okay. But by and large, everything is by a figment of our imagination. Okay. And so that's where the beauty is. Because we are going to explore on our own turf. Okay. Neither of us is coming with some experience that is going to put one ahead of the other. That notwithstanding, even if one has experience above the other, okay, it's about communication. So show me what you know. Show me your idea of sex. Show me how to satisfy you. And let me also show you how to satisfy me. And let's satisfy each other and enjoy it. Because it's supposed to be a pleasurable thing between a husband and a wife. Okay, so I agree with yourself, it is best to go in, let it be imagination. In fact, when it is by imagination, you are even creative. Okay, and that is when you are also ready to learn because it's a new area for you. But if you think you know, you may not even know as you think you know. And so
You may end up being flawed at the game.
Thank you. But if we are both coming in and we are both finding our rhythm, it gives room for creativity, it gives room for innovation, it gives room for us to explore each other, our bodies, and it binds us even better.
Even better.
But not a situation where one is coming with a bag full of experience and has the expectation is way up there, and the other is coming in as the underdog, the novice, and so after the act, one is blaming the other. I mean, what kind of woman have I married? You don't know anything. You don't know how to pleasurize your man. Or what kind of man have I married? Are you a man at all? You don't even know how to do it. Okay, so
that question will hit. That question will really hit.
Something that is supposed to be an act that will bind you, it's actually pulling you apart.
Point of division.
Yeah.
I see. So, and Papa, she mentioned something about imagination. It allows you to be creative. And talking about creativity, sex in current times, and you read all kinds of literature and in all kinds of movies, as far as a lot of us would have learned what is natural carnal knowledge, you know, it is the penile penetration of the vagina. But now there are all kinds of variations to it, you know, talking about creativity and imagination. There is the issue of oral sex. Even some go to the extent of anal sex. And especially when it comes to oral sex, it tends to be construed within the context of preparing the other person. And so what we call foreplay, right? What should be the Christian's position or approach to these things? Foreplay, creativity, imagination.
Right. Thank you. There is a book in the Old Testament, the Song of Songs. It comes soon after Ecclesiastes.
Yeah.
If you read it, you will wonder whether you are reading from the Bible. But I believe its essence in being in the Bible is to help us to know that romance and love is scriptural or is spiritual. My mind goes to when Eve came to Adam.
Yes.
And he could see, he also knew his naked, he knew the way he was. That he has a penis, he doesn't have, developed breasts. And then here he finds a woman who comes, the chest is loaded. Then he sees that there is a cavity. Possibly, if she is a Ghanaian or something, maybe she has front and back.
I see. What some people call Manchester and then Arsenal. Yes.
Right. So there is appreciation. And I'm bringing this up because the parts that God created and the functions of those parts have been so done that, medically, I'm sure there will be evidence to show that when you talk about the woman's vagina, the reproductive system, the type of blood and nerves that are found at that area and the tissues are not the same as what we will find in our mouth, even though they are all openings, and what we might find in our anus. A baby cannot come out of the mouth. A baby cannot come out of the anus, but a baby can come out of the woman's reproductive system. So it tells you that the hormonal functions are such that if a woman is really prepared, if she can give birth to a baby, then no matter the size of a male organ, she can take it. And the contact that comes, the flesh-to-flesh contact there, is not the same as when somebody inserts a penis into the mouth.
It's not replicable.
Yes. And I don't know how it is like, but the contact will not really be within the whole cavity as compared to where there is a sexual contact. let alone going to the anus, where we all know that that which comes out of it is not that big. You see, so I would believe that God, who is the creator, knew what he intended to achieve. If God has so made it, then it obviously means that if you want to have sex, let us go to the place that has been prepared to serve that purpose.
But Papa, just to push back on that, I've heard other pastors and even counselors say that, I mean, between you, the couple, married couple, I mean, to the extent of agreement, if you so agree that you would do a thing by way of pleasuring yourselves, there should be no law against that.
All things are lawful, but not all things are helpful. It will be lawful to do it. But when a woman exposes her husband to oral sex and anal sex, and a time comes where he thinks that maybe her anus is not able to take his male organ, because he's been initiated into it, he's likely to go out and become bisexual. If he can play both ways. I think that is sometimes it comes out of curiosity. Many couples who have gone that way sometimes have even complained that they did it possibly because one partner was present and they didn't want that partner to go outside. But we also know the medical implications. There are health implications. People have had, sores, throat cancer, and all these. People are putting on, what do you call it, pads, diapers, and that. So my advice is that if there is a door, and everybody knows that this is the door, don't tend to think that the window can also take me into the room. When it will be very easy for you to go through the door, because the window might have louvers. By the time you enter, you have broken a lot of things. Meanwhile, if you had gone through the door, it will be so open to you that no matter how big you are, you go in. I'm speaking in parable.
And just to bring some further education on this, because, and I said that some pastors and even some counselors have indicated that, if the couple agree between themselves, then there is no law against that. And just for our benefit, one Supreme Court judge who just retired, I think about 2 days ago, Justice Jones Doche, in that seminal case involving Gliga, defined what natural carnal knowledge is, which is restricted to the penile penetration of the vagina. Any other orifice into which penetration is done by the vagina is considered unnatural carnal knowledge, and it's actually criminal. So that's just by way of education. But coming into the perversions thereof, pornography, and there are all kinds of literature around it. Certain people indicate that, especially for the uninitiated, when they are going into marriage anew, this could be a source of learning for them. Others have also argued that it creates a false impression of what really sex is, and that it's an act and not real. How does pornography impact a person as far as their sexual life is concerned?
Pornography as a Christian is a no-no. And these people are actors, really. Okay, and they are on all sorts of drugs, medication. It's unnatural for you to be going on with the act for about an hour, and you are going on. If you are not under any medication, it's unnatural. Okay, so all these pornography that people are watching, one, it's not real. It truly does give you a false impression of what the act is, it actually is. And so you go in thinking that, okay, so you are a woman, and I'm speaking from the woman's perspective, you are a woman and you have watched a lot of pornography. And so you expect that your husband will come, perhaps he watched one that there was so much drama, before, and then it doesn't happen like that, and your expectations are not met. It's a source of conflict. You expect that your husband would last and last and last because that's what you have been watching. And then 5 minutes, 6 minutes into the game, you realize that you are losing your lubrication. You are becoming dry.
Yeah.
You are tired. You are getting bruised. And the more you feel pain, the more you cringe, and the harder it is. Okay. You end up being bruised and all, and you would begin to blame your husband that, oh, how is it that somebody, a man like you, can go for an hour and the woman seems to be enjoying it? Or you begin to have self-doubt. What is wrong with me? How is it that this lady, this favorite porn star of mine, is able to accommodate even 2-3 men? And they are going on for about 30 minutes, and she seems to be enjoying it. And I have just gone on. My husband has just penetrated for 5-6 minutes, and I'm beginning to feel pain. There must be something wrong with me. Okay, so you have started off this thing that has to be pleasurable on a wrong note. And then you begin to think, is it spiritual? Am I under spiritual attack? And pornography is demonic. Okay, we are Christians. Let's establish that. Pornography is demonic. Some people have watched pornography, taking them into dreams, and have had all sorts of demonic attacks and manifestations in their lives. What is it? What are you looking for? The act of a man and a woman. When you go into marriage, explore it with your husband, explore it with your wife. The two of you be creative about it. Once it does not hurt the two of you, why would you want to engage in anal sex with your wife to the point? Because God didn't create that place for it.
Yep.
Okay, it is not elastic. That place is just supposed to open up and let waste products drop off, basically. But so it is an outlet. It is not an inlet. Okay. It doesn't, it has these sphincter muscles, yes, that are not supposed to be contracting and expanding, and doesn't have elasticity as the vagina does. Okay, so with time, you destroy the sphincter muscles, and the place, instead of closing up after poo-pooing, it stays open.
Yeah.
And so we have gentlemen and ladies walking about in town with diapers on all the time because they are leaking poo-poo. The place is destroyed. And it would require surgical remedies. And sometimes they don't get remedied. Okay, and then you begin to get prone to all sorts of infections because the place is permanently open.
Yeah.
Okay, but God made it to close up. So it's a tight place.
Yeah.
However, the vagina, God in his wisdom is able to get it lubricated when the woman is excited, and it's easier to penetrate, and it stays. And it comes back. A woman's vagina is able to dilate 10 centimeters for a baby, a whole baby, to pop out.
I hope you are imagining how wide 10 centimeters is.
So it is like an elastic thing. My second born, she was around maybe 8.
8 centimeters.
8 years.
Okay.
Okay, so I was going for a walk with them. And then she said, God is wonderful. God is very wonderful. I said, yes, God is wonderful. And she said, oh, did you say, so she mentions her elder sister's name, and did you say that we came out through your TT? I said, yes. Then she says, but I've been watching you, Mommy. Why is your TT not whole? So I laughed. And I said, then it says, when we go to visit somebody who has a baby, you said baby comes out of the titty. And I'm looking at the baby. So she's looking at the baby and she's thinking that, how is a baby able to come? And I say, oh, it is because God made the place elastic.
Yeah.
So then she says, is it like the elastic in my skirt? I said, yes. He said, it's true. When I pull it, it opens. When I leave it, it goes back. I say, yes, you've gotten the concept. That's all. Okay. So God, in his wisdom, that's how he made it. It's elastic in nature. It opens up, accommodates the man.
Yeah.
After the act, it goes back.
Contracts.
Okay. But the anus is not like that.
Yeah.
And it gives you all sorts of health issues.
So pornography is demonic.
Pornography
it's
is
problematic
demonic.
health-wise.
Problematic.
It creates all kinds of issues.
It creates all kinds of
And
psychological issues.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I mean, a number of people are contributing, and there's a question coming from Ifwa Akwete, and she says, what will one do if he or she has sex out of ignorance? And I want to believe she's asking, what should one do when he or she gets involved in sex out of ignorance? Papa, you want to take that?
Well, I don't know what it's meant by ignorance. Whether it's that she was a new person.
Naive around it.
Well,
Probably
for all the
lured into
little general science and little questions, I'm sure right from infancy, we see boys and girls, they look at each other, they admire each other. Sometimes you even will see, if you have a boy and a girl, I mean your children, the girl looks at her brother and the way he wee-wees, and want to also stand that way to wee-wee. You know, so it means that there is some level of, some knowledge that is gained. That, oh, I'm a lady, so I will maybe squat or something.
Yeah.
So if she talks about ignorance, maybe that she's being initiated into it.
Yeah.
My whole this thing will be that we have to be careful about the touches. When I look at the younger generation, it looks, I don't know whether the younger generations really have emotions, but some of the places that they touch, sometimes some of us observers, we are worried. You know, you will see the way they hold their palms, they put their hands around the shoulders.
Oh, that's a cause for worry for you.
Well,
I see.
Because you see, those are some parts of the body that sends signals. In fact, I personally, when I was in the university, a biologist, Reverend Professor Kisiedu, shared with us that there are some ladies whose palms are sexually sensitive. That when you hold their palms and you are pressing and you are enjoying, you are sending signals to them which they might be interpreting in a wrong direction. Maybe that you are interested, you want to do something, you know. So we should be careful some of the parts that we touch. And sometimes even the things we do with our senses.
Yeah.
You know, the signals that you send to somebody, you know, you tend to turn your eye in a certain direction, you know.
How you wink or something.
Sometimes you might think you are not doing anything, but they are all they are signals. And it is in the midst of these that people find themselves sometimes caught up in a web.
Yeah.
And then they find themselves, you have gone to visit a friend. He's been sending these signals indirectly. And then now you are in his room. And the door is locked. And you are a woman or a lady. Obviously, your strength will not be able to stand if he puts a little pressure on you. If you fall into that, there is room for asking for forgiveness. If you look at it from the Christian point of view, because that's also therapeutic.
Yeah.
Acknowledging that what you have done is wrong and asking God for forgiveness.
Okay.
And resolving that I'm not going to do this until I get married.
Great.
I think it's very helpful.
Great.
It really brings a level of, we were talking about primary virginity and secondary virginity.
Yeah.
If the virginity has been broken and you come to that point and you acknowledge, I believe that the Lord is able to blot out our transgressions. I always am mindful of Bathsheba.
Yeah.
The wife of Uriah.
Yes.
That Solomon, who gave birth to Solomon. You know, David committed adultery. He practiced sex outside marriage.
Yeah.
In the end, when David acknowledged his sins, and this woman, had lost the child, and then David married her, David gave birth to Solomon.
Yeah. So there's redemption available.
Exactly. And God called that son a friend of the Lord.
Yeah.
That was the name Prophet Nathan gave to him,
Yeah.
to Solomon. So when God remedies the situation, new things can begin.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Unfortunately, we don't have so much time. A few questions are still coming through. But someone is asking, and talking about signals, someone is asking, and this, Amma, how do you know the lady is ready for it without her voicing it out? And it here being sex. How do you know the lady is ready for sex? And, I mean, being a woman, I think you can tell us best.
So I would want to ask the person who asked this question, is the person asking the question in the context of marriage, or the person is asking, because the person is asking, how do you know when the lady,
Is
if
ready.
a lady is ready? Do you mean, how do you know if your wife is ready? Because that's the answer I want to give.
Yes, so
that's
let's
the question I would
yes,
want
within
to
the context
answer.
of yes.
Within the context of marriage.
Yeah.
How do you know if it brings to mind a late? You know these stories we tell and we
Yes.
say they are late.
Late.
Late. So there's this couple, and couples have signals they give to each other.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's known to just the two of them.
Yeah.
And so there was this family seated at a table at a meal. And they had just one bedroom. So parents and the children slept in the same room.
So parents on the bed, children on the floor.
Yes. But the boy noticed that anytime they were at breakfast and daddy rolls a napkin and throws it at mommy, that night something happens.
That's right.
So daddy rolls the napkin. Just when he was about to throw, the boy says, "Hey, Dada, no, obetro." Okay, so couples have signals they give to each other. And
Yeah.
you may not know if you're outside them. And so they know. They have signals they give to each other. And a woman is all about you preparing her mind. Okay, when you prepare her mind. So as I said earlier, during the day, you've been fantastic, okay? Or it's her birthday. She wakes up in the morning. You acknowledge that it's her birthday. You know, she feels loved. She feels appreciated. And I keep saying appreciated. A lot of times, women complain that their husbands take them for granted. Okay. She cooks a meal. It's nice. Husband, there's nothing that stops you from saying, oh, this food is very nice. Thank you. Okay. But you are seeing it as her duty to cook for you. Okoye no ho ade.
Better worker.
Better worker. Okay. Even after sex, we advise, say thank you.
Yeah.
Both of you should say thank you to each other. Okay. For especially when you feel satisfied.
For good services rendered.
For good services rendered, say thank you. Appreciate one another. So if the lady feels appreciated, you would know her body language will tell you that she's ready.
Yeah.
You touch her, her body is ready. Okay, so you don't even need anybody to tell you that she's ready, because you would have worked on her mind. And she feels loved. She feels appreciated.
Okay. And Florence is asking, and maybe I may paraphrase her question because of something you said in the past. But you let me read the original and then you can take it. It says, how much affection or intimacy should you have with your partner before getting married? And I want to believe Florence means affection. To what extent should you express affection prior to getting married?
Well, affection is part of our lives. God created us with what we call the communicable attributes. So we show affection. But there must be a line that is drawn to say there's a passage in James chapter 1.
Yes.
Which talks about sin when it has conceived.
Yes.
You know, the consequences. So if you draw the line, then you say, I'm showing affection. Sometimes there can be some situation, I know very well that if my friend embraces me, some shocks go through my system.
That's right.
Then we draw the line and say,
Electrostatic shocks.
so now we'll do shoulder to shoulder.
Okay.
Yes.
The Pentecost type.
Yeah. Right. So you draw lines for yourselves in a way to protect both of you. Because you see, at the end of the day, as we said, you are not yet married. If you go too far, and then later on you realize that then sex too is such that when you get to a certain point, turning back is extremely difficult. Either it might end up with a withdrawal or something. So,
That's right.
So you make sure that you don't go too far. So I would say that in terms of how far, both parties must draw their own lines as much as is clearly possible to enable them not feel guilty about what they do.
Okay. So it's much more to do with your own conscience.
Yes.
And being self-aware that your actions may have implications, and so you need to keep them within bounds. And there's a comment coming through from Stephen Agalik, and he says, some studies have shown that some church counselors don't dwell enough on the matters and issues of sex during their premarital counseling or have no details about it. This approach seems not to help new couples, and they go on having issues in their marriages, which create the avenue for cheating or finding other ways to supplement their already boring sex lives. I believe our church counselors must seek to do more in the areas of sex education and not rather seem to be covering the topic of sex during counseling. Is it a thing that comes up a lot?
Yes. So for us, sex is a topic.
So in Trinity United Church,
Yes,
if you are
Trinity
going through
United,
counseling, it won't be shrouded
we
in
deal-
secrecy.
No, we deal with sex.
Okay.
Yes. But how far can we go?
Yeah.
Okay. We'll go as far as we think we should go. But as I said, find your rhythm. Okay. It is the two of you.
Yeah.
There's an electronic book that I always would send to the couples we counsel the day before their wedding.
Okay.
Okay. And it has 365 styles.
Oh, wow.
So supposedly a style a day.
Oh, wow.
But there are some styles you would break your neck. So I'll send it to you and I'll issue a caveat. Practice all at your discretion.
Caveat emptor, buyer beware.
Okay, so we treat sex because we should treat it.
Yeah.
Sex is God talks about sex in the context of marriage.
Yeah.
So it is wrong for counseling to have taken place. All other aspects treated. You've treated finances, you treated communication, you treated conflict, and then you avoid sex. We are expecting you to have sex when you get married. So, we are not expecting you to have had sex before marriage. So it's supposed to be a new area. So you need to be taught.
Yeah.
So we teach.
Great.
Okay. But to the extent to which we will teach it, we would have to leave room for you to also discover some of your own accord. So we do treat. As for Trinity, we do treat sex.
Let me maybe add this, that marriage is not all about sex. You know, for all those of us in our various professions, there are courses. Sometimes every semester you take about 6 courses.
Yeah.
But they are all 3 credit hours, 3 credit hours, 3 credit hours. It doesn't mean that one is more important than the other.
Yes.
But so you can have a broad knowledge and be able to enter into your profession.
Yeah.
You know, when I was studying engineering at Tech, one of the things our lecturers always used to say is that we are giving you a broad base. When you enter the profession, then you know which one to apply and how to apply it. And the same applies in marriage. So we prepare the people. Sometimes when you ask people to do premarital counseling for even 6 months, they are complaining. So it obviously means that even if we had 3 months, how many weeks? It's just about 12 weeks. So it will be 3 credit hours course.
Time, yeah,
Maybe
on the matter of sex.
Exactly.
Of course.
And then you go and practice and learn more.
And maybe if you forget everything at all, at least from this conversation, just as some theologians say, the issue of do not fear, or that expression, do not be afraid, is recorded about 365 times in the Bible. At least we are learning that there's a possibility of having about 365 different sex styles. So just take your time. There's a lot more time to explore that when you get married. And just to let you know, our producers are giving us a bit more time today, and so we'll be wrapping up in a few minutes. But Martha is asking something, and maybe I'll bring it to you, Sofo. She's asking, what is the relationship between virginity breaking and connection in spirit? We have broached that subject, but just to, in 30 seconds, just touch on that again.
Well, virginity breaking, obviously, it means that you are entering into a new space, breaking the hymen. And for the woman, that is a new encounter. And as I said, there is always transmission of fluid. And that is where, for the first time maybe, because the virginity is being broken, there's going to be a transmission.
Yeah.
There is going to be an excitement. And some of those things, depending on the parties involved, can carry with them some spiritual links.
Okay, so that's how they are connected.
Please let me add
yes,
to
yes,
that.
briefly. Yeah.
There's a saying that says that the first cut is the deepest.
There's a song that goes with that as well.
Yes. A lady never forgets the person who broke her virginity. Okay, because it's a very significant thing in your life. Okay, the first person you opened your legs for and the person broke your virginity, you never forget that person. And because of the spiritual aspect of sex, there's always the tendency that even if you broke up with that person, even years down the line, if there's a rematch, the firewood would rekindle.
Lai Momo.
Lai Momo. Okay, so that is why it's dangerous to break your virginity before you married. And it's not even fair on your husband. It's not fair on your husband. And the men who would break girls' virginities and yet is looking for a virgin. Where are the virgins you are looking for?
Anyway, and talking about that, Tilly comes through with a question. And Tilly says, and this is one very practical question. He says, so now, there are some couples who have had previous sexual encounters in their former relationships. What would you share with such couples who want to enjoy a healthy sexual life in marriage? What practically should they do so as not to hold on to some memories from past experiences or past relationships? Papa?
Well, okay. I use the case of David and Bathsheba, and I just want to build on that.
Yeah.
There is the need for one to acknowledge that I messed up. That acknowledgement,
I messed up,
is important. And because I messed up, now I'm turning a new page. So when we get into the marriage, one has to make a conscious effort not to be recalling those experiences.
How do you do that?
Yeah, so what you have is what is before you. When we marry people, there is some statement that the minister normally makes. People don't really appreciate it. When the minister says, I join you together as husband and wife, in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Those whom God have joined together, let no one separate. The import of it is that you are being given a license to participate in sex. So if you have done it before, this one is just like cooking. When the food is on the fire, you can be eating in the kitchen. But it is not as pleasant as when you have prepared it and put it on the table.
Especially if you are not the one who cooked it. It is very enjoyable.
And you sit down and you pray over it. Even if it is 2 slices, you really will enjoy it. And so there is a need for, it's a conscious effort. It doesn't mean one cannot completely forget. But one should be careful not to be comparing.
Okay. Would you want to add something little to that?
Yes, so I think I made that comment that
Yeah.
that's where the danger is
Yeah.
with having experience, because you'd always have basis of comparison. And well, maybe you've had one in times past who was fantastic, okay, and now you have a novice who is now learning, and you don't have the patience for the person to learn because you think that, and then you also have the experience of pornography. So you came into the marriage with one, experience, and two, preconceived mind. And this is a man who has also come into the marriage, perhaps a Christian man who stayed away from premarital sex, who is also coming in and saying, okay, so it's my wife. I'm going to explore sex with my wife. But
Yeah.
this is an experienced wife who is coming, and she's had experience with serious guys.
The Omanhinis.
You, the Omanhinis.
And now it's coming to
and
meet
now to
Ahinkwa.
Ahinkwa.
I mean,
She would always complain. After the act, she would always complain. And for a man, that is a big bruise to his ego. For you to say that, okay, on a scale of 0 to 10,
Yeah.
this is a 2.
you have been scored
You
below
have
average.
been scored below
No, this is actually
average.
fail.
This is fail. And it bruises his ego. It gives him mental stress. It gives him emotional stress. It gives him psychological stress.
Post-traumatic stress disorder.
Thank you. Okay, so you are starting off the marriage with issues already. Okay. Issues because of the kind of life you led before marriage.
You see, the conversation, it cannot end
It
today.
cannot end.
It cannot end today. And I mean, we just want to let you know that there's going to be a part 2 of this conversation. All right. So those who did not have your questions answered, you can join us same time as we are actually cataloging all your questions and your comments, because someone asked a very crucial question around the issue of consent. And it's a very big issue, the issue of consent, because of the story of Tamar and Amnon, for instance, that you brought, and how we can very practically educate our people on the issue of consent. And there are a lot of others, but just maybe that final one, then we can wrap it up with a comment that Stephen Agalik, who today seems to be giving us a lot of suggestions as to how we should go about things, should be. So on the issue of consent, how do we practically teach couples? I mean, you may have been married, but there are also the incidences of marital rape. How do we broach this subject, especially to couples?
Well, I believe that if one decides to get married, for me, there are rights. But you should know that if you go into marriage insisting on your rights to the detriment of your partner, then we are not in a team. When we get into a team, we come with all our strengths and our weaknesses. And we see how best we are able to bring these things together. You might find that in the team, there might be somebody who does things which you really don't like. But if you choose to belong into that team,
Yeah,
there are some sacrifices to be made.
you need to make, yeah.
There are also understanding. That's where communication comes very clearly. Yeah, so I would say that if people decide to marry, it's not force. It's not an obligation. Some people choose not to marry because they think they cannot stand the sacrifices.
Yeah.
But if you choose to, then you should know that you need to understand the game.
Yeah.
And see how best. Sometimes when they are playing football, there are some people who are good strikers, but they are placed at a point where they are not supposed to do striking. You need to pass the ball on to somebody to strike. And you have to swallow your pride and know that where you've been positioned, this is how you're going to do it, so that it will be a teamwork.
Great. And I know you have a lot to say. I know you have more things to say. But just to wrap it up, saying we're going to have a part 2 on this. But Stephen Agalik is advising, and he says he believes that as a church, we should make premarital counseling a standard 6 months before couples get down into marriage. And that too many marriages are going down. Because, I mean, people are in a rush to get married, and they do not take their time to understand the institution they are going into. And there's a thing that I thought about some time back. When you are born as a child, you go through about a minimum of about 20 or 21, 22 years of education, preparing you for your first job, which you may start around the age of 23, 24, which means if you are retiring at 60, you may be working for about 36 years. But when you get married, it is for the rest of your life. So if you are getting married somewhere, even let's say even 30, and God gives you life, you'll be married for a minimum of, let's say, 40 years. How much preparation have we made going into the institution of marriage? So I think premarital counseling is very important. And we're wrapping up thanking all of you. And we'll be bringing you a second part of this conversation. Believe it or not, I came into this conversation very nervous. But my guests have helped us to have a very easy conversation. To acknowledge them again, our Minister in Charge, Reverend Dr. Martin Edu Obing, as well as the Chairman of our Wellness and Counseling Committee, Mrs. Joyce Chumesi-Edu. This has been Let's Talk About, and today we've been talking about the mystery of sex. This is the part 1. God willing, next week we'll be bringing you part 2. My name is Benjamin Ofeado. Thank you for joining us, and enjoy the rest of your evening.